The crystalline towers of Luminina Prime stretched into the purple sky like frozen lightning. Queen Aeth sat upon her throne of living light, watching as candidates from across the galaxy entered her grand hall. Today was the Centennial Selection, an event that happened once every 100 years. Species from newly discovered worlds would send their best, and she would choose who would serve in her royal court. Aeth had ruled for 3,000 years. She had seen countless species rise and fall. Her empire stretched across 12 star systems, and her word was law. Yet, despite all her power and knowledge, she still found joy in these selections. New species always brought fresh perspectives, new ways of thinking that even her ancient mind found fascinating. The candidates stood in a long line. Before her, there were 17 different species present. A Quarian warrior, massive and covered in natural armor plates, stood at attention. His kind were known across the galaxy as fierce fighters. Beside him, a crystalline from the Sigma worlds reflected light in dazzling patterns. Their species could process information faster than any computer. Further down the line, a floating Netherin bobbed gently in the air, their gaseous form contained in an environmental suit. Then Aeth's eyes fell upon the human. He was small compared to most of the others. His skin was a light brown, his black hair cut short and neat. He wore simple clothing provided by the selection committee. Unlike many candidates who stood with pride and showed off their abilities, this human simply stood quietly. His hands were relaxed at his sides. His dark eyes watched everything with calm attention. Next candidate stepped forward, called Vixthra, the Queen's chief advisor. Her voice echoed through the hall. The human walked forward with steady steps. He stopped at the designated spot and bowed his head. Respectfully, state your name and world of origin, Vixthra said, her 4 eyes studying the human with barely concealed doubt. My name is Day. I come from Earth, from the region humans call the Korean Peninsula. His voice was calm and clear. Aeth leaned forward slightly. The human's neural pattern was unusual. Most species showed spikes of anxiety or excitement during the selection. His mind was like still water. She could sense thoughts moving beneath the surface, but they were controlled and ordered. The humans are a primitive species, Vixthra said, not bothering to whisper. They have barely achieved basic space travel. Their lifespans are short. Their bodies are fragile. Why should Her Majesty consider you? Day did not flinch at the insult. My species may be young by galactic standards, but we are adaptable. We learn quickly. We endure. The Quarian warrior laughed, a sound like grinding stones. Endure? Your world has barely faced any real threat. You know nothing of survival. Perhaps, Day replied simply, not taking the bait. Aeth found herself intrigued. Most candidates would defend their species with passion or anger. This human simply acknowledged the criticism and moved on. There was confidence in that response, but it was quiet confidence, the kind that did not need to prove itself with words. The trials will begin now, Aeth announced, her voice carrying power that made the very air vibrate. Each candidate will face 3 tests: strength, intelligence, adaptability. Those who fail will return to their worlds with honor. Those who succeed may join my court. The first trial was strength. Candidates had to move a massive stone block from one end of a chamber to the other. The Quarian warrior lifted it easily, his muscles barely straining. The crystalline used focused energy beams. The Netheran struggled but managed with anti-gravity pulses. When Day's turn came, he studied the block carefully. He walked around it, examining the floor, the walls, the ceiling. Then he found what he was looking for, a series of maintenance poles stored along one wall. He took 3 poles and constructed a simple lever system using physics and the building's own structure. He moved the block slowly but steadily across the room. Several advisors whispered among themselves. The human had not shown raw strength, but he had shown problem-solving ability. The second trial tested intelligence, complex puzzles that required understanding of mathematics, logic, and pattern recognition. The crystalline excelled here, solving problems in seconds, but Day also performed well, his methodical approach yielding correct answers consistently. He was not the fastest, but he made no mistakes. The third trial was adaptability. Candidates were placed in a simulation chamber where the environment changed rapidly: extreme heat, freezing cold, high gravity, low oxygen, random obstacles appearing without warning. Many candidates struggled. The Korean warrior pushed through with brute force but looked exhausted afterward. The crystalline had to be removed when the cold became too intense for their structure. Day moved through the chamber with careful efficiency. When the heat came, he found shade and waited. When gravity increased, he moved low and slow. When oxygen dropped, he controlled his breathing. He did not try to fight the environment, he adapted to it. He survived. When the trials ended, only 7 candidates remained. Ath studied each one carefully. Then her eyes returned to Day. The human interests me, she announced. Several advisors gasped in surprise. Your Majesty, Vixthra began carefully. Surely there are more qualified candidates. The Korean's strength, the Netheran's diplomatic experience. I have seen strength before, Eighth interrupted. I have seen intelligence before, but there is something about this human I wish to understand better. He will join my court. Day bowed deeply. I am honored, Your Majesty. That night, after the other candidates had been sent home and the selected ones given quarters in the palace, Eighth stood on her private balcony. She looked out at the stars and thought about the quiet human. In her 3,000 years she had developed an instinct for potential, and something told her that Day was more. Then he appeared. She touched her mind gently to his, just a surface reading. She sensed discipline, control, and buried deep, something that felt like coiled steel ready waiting. The Queen smiled to herself. She had made the right choice. Time would reveal what the human truly was. She looked forward to finding out. 3 weeks had passed since Day arrived at the royal palace. Each morning he woke in his quarters, a small but comfortable room with a window overlooking the palace gardens. The gardens grew plants from dozens of worlds, creating combinations of color and form that Earth had never seen. Day spent his first morning each day looking out that window, letting his mind settle. Before the day began, his duties were simple. He attended the Queen during public audiences. He served at diplomatic dinners. He stood quietly in corners during meetings, ready if needed but never intrusive. The other members of the court barely noticed him. To them, he was just the strange human the Queen had selected, probably a passing curiosity that would fade with time. Vixthra, the chief advisor, made her disapproval clear. She assigned Day the least important tasks. When dignitaries visited, she positioned him in the background. When the queen asked for reports, Vixthra always presented information from the other selected candidates first, leaving Day's observations for last. If mentioned at all, Day did not complain. He simply did his work and watched everything. He watched how the palace guards changed shifts every 6 hours. He noticed which hallways had the most security and which had blind spots. He observed the patterns of diplomatic visits, learning which species respected the queen and which merely feared her. He studied the behavior of everyone around him, filing away information. Without judgment, the other selected candidates formed their own social groups. The Korean warrior, whose name was Vorthen, often gathered others to demonstrate combat techniques in the training yards. The Netheran diplomat, called Whisper by the others, held evening discussions about galactic politics, but nobody invited Day to join these gatherings. There was one exception. Another human worked in the palace, a man named Tae, who served in the maintenance division. He had been on Lumina Prime for 2 years already, part of the first group of humans allowed off Earth after contact. Tae found during his second week. You are the one the queen selected, Tae said in their native language. His accent was from the southern regions of the peninsula. Everyone is talking about you. What are they saying? Day asked. Tae smiled sadly. They wonder why she chose you. They think you are weak. They do not understand humans yet. Maybe they are right, Day said quietly. Tae studied him for a moment, then shook his head. No, I do not think so. There is something about the way you move, the way you watch. You remind me of someone. Who? My cousin. He was in the military. Special operations, before the aliens came. He had that same quiet way about him. Tae paused. But I will not ask questions. Everyone deserves their privacy. After that, Tae would visit Day. Sometimes in the evenings they would share news from Earth, talk about home, and sometimes just sit in comfortable silence. Those moments reminded Day of his sister Hana before he left Earth. She had held his hand and said, "Come back safe. Do not forget who you are." He had not forgotten. The queen called for him regularly. These meetings happened in her private study, a room filled with holographic displays and artifacts from 1,000 worlds. She would ask him questions about Earth, about human culture and philosophy. Your species has a strained relationship with conflict, she observed during one meeting. You have fought countless wars among yourselves, yet you also create elaborate rules for how to fight. You cause great suffering, then work tirelessly to heal it. Why? D considered his answer carefully. We understand that conflict reveals who we are. It tests us, but we also know that how we fight matters as much as why we fight. Honor is not about being perfect, it is about trying to be better than we were yesterday. Ath tilted her head. A practical philosophy for an imperfect species. We are very imperfect, Your Majesty. These conversations continued over the weeks. The queen seemed genuinely interested in human perspectives. She asked about Earth history, its struggles, its achievements. Day answered honestly, never hiding humanity's flaws but also showing its capacity for growth. Then came the incident in the training yard. Day had been walking through the palace grounds when he heard laughter. A group had gathered to watch Voron, the Korthian warrior, demonstrate his fighting skills. The massive alien was sparring with practice weapons against training drones. His movements were powerful and fast, destroying each drone with single strikes. The crowd applauded. Voron noticed Day watching from the edge of the group. The Quarian's eyes gleamed with something that might have been malice or might have been simple pride. The human Forthan called out, "Come, show us what your species can do." The crowd fell silent. Everyone turned to look at Day. "I'm just here to observe," Day said calmly. "Are you afraid?" Forthan pressed. "Your species claims to be adaptable. Prove it. Fight me. I will use practice weapons. I will even slow down so you have a chance." Some in the crowd laughed. Others looked uncomfortable. This was a clear challenge designed to embarrass. Day met Vorthon's eyes steadily. "I respectfully decline. I have no need to prove anything." "Because you cannot," Vorthon said triumphantly. "Your species is weak. The Queen made a mistake selecting you." Day simply bowed slightly and walked away. Behind him he heard the Quarian declare victory. Let them think what they wanted. He had learned long ago that the most dangerous enemy was the one who underestimated you. That evening, news of the incident reached Queen Aeth. She summoned Day to her study. "You refused Vorthon's challenge," she said. "It was not a question." "Yes, Your Majesty. He insults you. He insults your species. Yet you walk away." Day met her gaze. "Words only have the power we give them. Vorthon wants to prove he is superior. He needs that validation. I do not." The Queen studied him for a long moment. Something flickered in her ancient eyes. Doubt. Perhaps she had defended her choice to select him, but maybe she wondered if she had misjudged. "You may go," she said finally. Day bowed and left. As he walked back to his quarters, he thought about Hana's message from home. She had sent it earlier that day through official channels. "The family is proud of you. Whatever happens, remember we love you." He would remember, and when the time came, if it came, he would make sure that humanity's reputation among the stars was built on more than words. The palace settled into its nightly routines. Guards patrolled halls. Diplomats retired to their quarters. The Queen stood on her balcony and looked at the stars. Somewhere deep in her mind, an instinct whispered that everything was about to change. The Grand Hall had been prepared for 3 days. Banners from 50-star nations hung from the ceiling. Translation devices hummed. At every seat, security had been increased with palace guards stationed at every entrance. This was the summit of accords where Queen Aeth would negotiate new trade agreements and resolve disputes between neighboring systems. Day stood in his assigned position near the eastern wall. From here he could see the entire hall. The Queen sat on her throne at the far end, flanked by her advisors. Representatives from various species filled the rows of seats. Their conversations creating a buzz of different languages and frequencies. The Draven Collective had sent a delegation of 12. They were a militaristic species, aggressive and territorial. Their empire had been expanding for decades, and they had come today to challenge several of the Queen's recent decisions. Their leader, a scarred warrior named Krex, had barely hidden his contempt when addressing Aeth. "Your influence weakens," Craigs had said during his opening statement. "Your Empire grows soft, perhaps it is time. For stronger leadership, the room had gone silent. Such direct disrespect was rare. Queen Eighth had simply smiled, a cold expression that held 3,000 years of authority. Strong words from a species that has existed for only 5 centuries, she replied. Please continue, I enjoy hearing children speak. Crex's face had darkened with rage, but he said nothing more. The negotiations continued. They watched everything. He noticed small details, the way 3 Draven representatives kept glancing at specific exit points, how one of them touched his communication device every few minutes in a pattern that seemed rehearsed, the slight tension in their postures like coiled springs waiting to release. Something was wrong. He moved slightly closer to the Queen's position, trying to appear casual. Vixthra noticed and frowned at him, but Day ignored her. His instincts were screaming danger. The explosion came without warning. The western wall erupted inward, showering the hall with debris. Smoke filled the air. Screams echoed off the high ceiling. Through the smoke came 12 figures in black armor, moving with deadly precision. They carried weapons that hummed with energy, and their helmets displayed no faces, just red optical sensors that swept the room like predator eyes. Protect the Queen, someone shouted. Palace guards rushed forward. The assassins cut them down. Seconds, energy weapons tore through armor, shields that could withstand plasma fire simply failed. These attackers had technology specifically designed to counter Vulcan defenses. More guards poured in from side entrances. Vorthon, the Quarian warrior, charged at the assassins with a roar that shook the floor. He made it 3 steps before an energy net wrapped around him, and a follow-up blast sent him crashing into a wall. The assassins advanced in a coordinated pattern. 4 moved to secure exit points. 4 engaged the remaining guards. 4 pressed toward Queen Eighth. Eighth stood from her throne. Her psychic power flared, creating a shield of pure mental energy around herself. But one of the assassins activated a device on his belt. A high-pitched frequency filled the hall, and Eighth's shield flickered. The device was a psionic dampener, designed specifically to counter her abilities. Fall back to the throne, Vixthra commanded what few guards remained. Protect Her Majesty at all costs. The guards formed a desperate perimeter. They were outnumbered and outmatched. One by one they fell. The assassins moved like machines, efficient and merciless. Day had moved behind a pillar when the explosion first happened. He watched the battle unfold with cold calculation. 12 enemies, advanced weapons, psionic dampener, coordinated military tactics. These were not random attackers. This was a professional hit squad. He assessed his resources. No weapons, no armor, just his body and his training. The 4 assassins reached the final line of guards. 2 guards fell, then 3. The last guard, a young Valthurian female, raised her weapon with shaking hands. An assassin batted it aside and raised his energy blade to strike her down. Day moved. He crossed the distance in heartbeats, his footsteps silent despite his speed. He grabbed the fallen guard's weapon from the floor, not to fire it, but to use as a club. The assassin's sensors detected movement and began to turn, but Day was already inside his guard. He struck the weapon hand, causing the energy blade to drop Then he swept the assassin's legs and drove his elbow into the helmet sensor. Array, the assassin went down hard. 11 enemies left. The Queen's eyes went wide. The remaining advisors stared. Shock even through the psionic dampener. Eighth could feel the change in the room. The quiet human had become something else. Your Majesty, De said calmly, not even breathing hard. Permission to engage. Eighth's voice was steady despite her weakened state. Granted. His expression did not change, but something in his posture shifted. His stance became lower, more centered. His hands relaxed into positions that looked casual but were anything but. The other assassins saw their fallen comrade. They adjusted their formation instantly, recognizing a new threat. Two broke off from the group, advancing on the Queen. They moved to flank Day from opposite sides, their weapons charging. They fired simultaneously. Day was not there. He had read their intention from body language alone and moved before they pulled the triggers. Energy blasts scorched the floor. He had stood. He came up beside the left assassin, grabbed the weapon arm and redirected it toward the right assassin. The two shots collided in midair. Then Day twisted, using leverage and the assassin's own momentum to throw him into his partner. Both went down. 9 enemies left. The remaining assassins abandoned their positions and converged on Day. They recognized him now as the primary threat. 6 of them surrounded him in a practice pattern, leaving 3 to continue toward the Queen. Day's mind calculated angles and timing. 6 opponents with superior weapons and armor. Any one of them could kill him with a single shot. His advantage was speed, unpredictability, and the fact that they had underestimated him. They would not make that mistake twice. Assassins attacked in sequence, trying to overwhelm him with coordinated strikes. Energy blades cut through the air. Projectile weapons fired in controlled bursts. They were professionals executing a textbook assault, but Day fought like water, flowing around attacks, using the assassin's own movements against them, striking at weak points in their armor and formation. He grabbed one assassin's arm and used him as a shield against another's fire. He kicked a weapon from one hand and caught it in the air to block another blade. His movements were economical, precise, and devastatingly effective. Within 30 seconds, 3 more assassins were down. The remaining 3 surrounding Day paused, reassessing. Behind them, the last 3 reached Queen Eighth's throne. Her psionic dampener was still active. Her powers reduced. She could not defend herself. Day saw the danger. He broke from his current engagement, moving faster than the Vthuran sensors could properly track. He crossed the hall in a sprint that seemed impossible for human physiology. The 3 assassins near the Queen raised their weapons. Day arrived like a storm. He struck the first assassin's weapon hand with a precise blow that shattered bones even through armor. The second received an elbow to the side that cracked ribs. The third tried to shoot, but Day was already moving, redirecting the shot into the floor, while simultaneously disarming the attacker. The last 3 assassins, the ones who had been surrounding Day, now charged together. This was their final attempt. They would overwhelm him with pure aggression. Day stood his ground. As they closed in, he moved between them like a dancer, using their own proximity against them. A thrown helmet smashed into one's face. A redirected energy blast from the second hit the third. They used every surface, floor, walls, fallen debris as weapons or leverage points. When the last assassin fell, the hall went completely silent. Day stood among 12 defeated enemies, barely breathing hard, his simple court clothing was torn and dirty, but he appeared largely unharmed. He looked up at Queen Aeth, who stared at him from her throne with an expression beyond surprise. It was all. "Your Majesty," Day said quietly, bowing his head, "the threat is neutralized." Then he simply walked back to his position near the wall and stood at attention as if nothing extraordinary had happened. The medical teams arrived. Within minutes, they moved through the Grand Hall, checking the wounded and securing the unconscious assassins. All 12 attackers were alive but incapacitated. The precision required to defeat armed soldiers without killing them was something the Valthurians had rarely witnessed. Queen Aeth watched as her guards placed restraints on the Draven assassins. Her psionic dampener had been destroyed and her powers were returning. Gradually, she reached out with her mind touching the edges of Day's consciousness as he stood quietly by the wall. What she felt made her ancient heart beat faster. Beneath his calm surface, Day's mind was like the ocean, vast depths hiding beneath still waters. His thoughts were ordered and controlled, moving through combat analysis and threat assessment with mechanical efficiency, but deeper still, she sensed something that shocked her. He was not exhausted. He was not even particularly stressed. The fight that had seemed so incredible to everyone watching had been for him merely another day's work. Representatives from the 50 star nations were being escorted out by security. They walked past Day, their expressions ranging from fear to wonder. Some species had never seen such combat efficiency. Others recognized skilled fighting, but could not understand how a human, a species considered physically unremarkable, could move that way. Vorthen, the Quarian warrior, had regained consciousness. 2 medical staff helped him stand. He looked at Day with new eyes, all his earlier arrogance gone. He opened his mouth as if to speak, then simply closed it and bowed his head in respect before being led away for treatment. "Clear the hall," Aeth commanded. Her voice, though weakened, still carried authority. "All non-essential personnel are dismissed. Day, you will remain." The room emptied. Slowly, Vixthra, the chief advisor, hesitated at the doorway. She looked back at Day with an expression that might have been fear or might have been anger at being proven so wrong. Then she, too, departed, leaving only the queen and the human. Aeth stood from her throne and descended the steps. She moved slowly, still recovering from the psionic attack. Day remained at attention until she gestured for him to relax. "Sit," she said, indicating a bench near the wall. "You have earned rest." "I am fine, Your Majesty." That was not a suggestion. Day sat, Aeth settled beside him, an act that would have shocked her entire court. Queens did not sit beside servants, but after what she had witnessed, normal rules seemed meaningless. "What are you?" she asked directly. Day met her eyes steadily. "I am human. That is not what I mean. And you know it. I have encountered thousands of species. I have seen warriors from death worlds. I have witnessed fighters enhanced by technology and evolution. But what you did," she paused, searching for words, "you moved faster than our sensors could properly track. You defeated 12 trained killers using nothing but your body and Mind, you anticipated their every move. How training Day said simply, practice. Discipline. Explain, Day was quiet for a moment, organizing his thoughts on Earth. Before your people made contact, I served in what we call special operations forces. We are soldiers, trained for the most difficult missions. The training takes years, it breaks down who you are and rebuilds you into something that can function under any circumstance. So you are exceptional among humans? No. Your Majesty, I am trained. There are thousands like me on Earth. Some are better than I am. Eighth's eyes widened. The implications of that statement were staggering. Thousands. Humans have been fighting since we learned to walk, Day continued. We evolved on what you might call a death. World predators hunted us, disease killed us, we fought each other for resources, territory, survival. Every generation that survived passed on knowledge to the next, how to hunt, how to fight, how to endure. Eventually we developed systems to teach these skills. Deliberately. Martial arts, military training, strategy and tactics. He looked down at his hands. I am not strong by human standards. I am not fast by human standards, but I was trained to use what I have with maximum efficiency, to turn my environment into a weapon, to read opponents and exploit their weaknesses, to never stop, never give up, no matter how impossible the situation seems. Eighth touched his mind again, gently. She saw glimpses of his past, training, exercises that pushed human bodies to their absolute limits, missions in hostile territories where failure meant death, teammates lost, victories earned through blood and determination. And underlying it all, a philosophy that defines humanity: adapt or die. Your species evolved through constant threat, she said, understanding dawning. You developed persistence as a survival trait. You became endurance predators, chasing prey until they collapsed from exhaustion. You learned to adapt to any environment, to solve any problem, to refuse to accept defeat. Yes, Day confirmed, we are not the strongest species, we are not the fastest, we are not the smartest, but we keep going, we learn, we adapt, we survive. The Queen stood and walked to the damaged wall where the assassins had entered. She ran her hand over the scorched stone. I have ruled for 3,000 years. In that time I have seen species rise because of natural advantages, wings, telepathy, superior strength. I have never encountered a species whose primary advantage is simply refusing to quit. She turned back to him. Why did you hide this? When Vorthon challenged you, you could have demonstrated your abilities. You could have earned immediate respect. Respect earned through fear is not real respect, Day replied, and the most dangerous enemy is one who underestimates you. I learned long ago that being underestimated is an advantage. People who think you are weak will reveal their true intentions. They make mistakes, they let their guard down. So you were watching all along, learning, waiting. I was serving your Majesty, doing my duty. But yes, I was also learning about this place, these people, the politics at play. Information is as valuable as any weapon. Ath laughed, a sound that came from genuine appreciation rather than amusement. You are a spy as much as a warrior. I am whatever my mission requires me to be. The Queen walked back to her throne and sat down. Her strength was returning fully now. She looked at Day with new understanding. Your species will change the galaxy, not Because you are powerful, but because you are adaptable, because you understand that survival requires flexibility, intelligence, and determination. Maybe, De said carefully, but we would prefer to do it as friends, not conquerors. After today, fear will spread. The other species will see what one human can do. They will wonder what an army of humans could accomplish. Then we must show them that we can also be trusted, they responded. Strength without wisdom leads to tyranny. Power without restraint leads to destruction. These are lessons my species has learned through much suffering. We do not wish to repeat those mistakes on a galactic scale. Eighth studied him for a long moment, then she made a decision that would alter the course of history. I am appointing you as my personal guard and as humanity's official ambassador to the Valkan Empire. You will have authority to speak on Earth's behalf in matters of galactic policy. You will help guide how your species is integrated into the greater community. This expression remained calm, but she sensed surprise beneath the surface. Your Majesty, I am honored, but I must request one condition. Name it. Earth must be treated as an equal partner, not as a subordinate world, not as a curiosity to be studied. We are young, yes, we have much to learn, but we deserve respect. Agreed. Eighth said immediately. I have learned today that underestimating humanity would be the greatest mistake I could make. I will ensure the Galactic Council understands this as well. She stood and extended her hand in the human gesture of agreement Day had taught her weeks ago. He stood and took it, his grip firm, but not aggressive. Welcome to the wider galaxy, Day of Earth. Eighth said, I believe your species and mine will accomplish great things together. I hope so, Your Majesty. Day replied, for all our sakes. Outside, the twin suns of Lumina Prime were setting. The palace lights began to glow, and somewhere across the stars, Earth continued its rotation, unaware that one of its suns had just changed everything. News traveled fast across the galaxy. Within days, every star system in the known regions had heard about the human who defeated 12 Drain assassins with his bare hands. The story spread like wildfire, growing more elaborate with each retelling. Some versions claimed Day had supernatural powers, others said he was a secret weapon created by Earth's military. The truth was simultaneously simpler and more frightening. He was just a trained human, and there were thousands more like him. Queen Eighth stood before the Galactic Council 3 weeks after the assassination attempt. The council chamber was vast, with holographic projectors allowing representatives from hundreds of worlds to attend virtually. The air hummed with the translation devices working overtime to convert thousands of languages into something comprehensible. Honored members, Eighth began, her voice amplified across the chamber. Today we must discuss the species known as humans and their place among us. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. The Quarian representative stood immediately. With respect, Your Majesty, after the incident at your palace, many species are concerned. If one human can defeat an elite strike team, what could an army of humans accomplish? Should we fear them? Fear them? Ath repeated, no, but we should respect them, and more importantly, we should understand them. She gestured, and a holographic image of Earth appeared in the center of the chamber. The blue and green world rotated slowly, looking peaceful and beautiful. This is Earth, Eighth continued, by our Standards, it is a death world. High gravity, dangerous weather patterns. Predators evolved specifically to hunt. Humans, diseases that attack there. Immune systems constantly limited. Resources forcing competition. Humans evolved not through dominance but through adaptation. They survived because they learned to change, to solve problems, to endure suffering that would break other species. Another gesture brought up images of human history, cities rising and falling, wars spanning continents, art and science flourishing despite constant conflict. Humans have been fighting for survival since they first walked upright. Eighth said they fought predators, they fought disease, they fought each other. Every challenge taught them something new. They developed medicine because they were sick. They developed engineering because they needed shelter. They developed strategy because they faced enemies. Suffering made them strong, not because it gave them power, but because it taught them to survive anything. A crystalline representative spoke up, their voice chiming like bells. But surely the one called Day is exceptional. Not all humans can possess such ability. That is what I thought, Eighth admitted. So I investigated, I requested information from Earth about their military forces. What I learned should concern us all, not because humans are dangerous, but because we have been thinking about them incorrectly. She brought up new data, training programs, militaries, martial arts schools scattered across Earth's continents. Day is not exceptional, he is trained. Earth has millions of soldiers, hundreds of thousands have training similar to Day's. They teach children fighting techniques. Before they reach adolescence, they study war the way we study art, not because they love violence, but because their history has taught them that peace requires strength. They understand something we have forgotten, that the ability to fight and the choice not to fight are both equally important. The Netheran diplomat whisper floated forward. Then what do you propose, Your Majesty? Should we restrict human expansion, limit their population, control their military development? No, Eighth said firmly. We should invite them to join us as equals. We should learn from them as they learn from us, because humanity offers something the galaxy desperately needs: adaptability. Look around this chamber. How many species here have changed significantly in the last 1,000 years? How many have adapted to new challenges rather than simply applying old solutions? Silence greeted her question. Exactly. Eighth continued. We have become comfortable, set in our ways, but the galaxy changes constantly. New threats emerge, resources shift, climate patterns alter. Humans have spent their entire evolution learning to adapt to change. They can teach us flexibility. In exchange, we can offer them knowledge, technology, and a place among the stars they have dreamed of reaching. The Quarian representative spoke again. And if they turn their abilities against us, if they become conquerors, then we will have only ourselves to blame. Eighth replied. If we treat them as threats, they will become defensive. If we treat them as subordinates, they will resent us. But if we treat them as equals, as partners, as friends, then we gain allies who will stand with us through any challenge. I have spoken extensively with Day. I have touched his mind with my abilities. Humans do not want to conquer, they want to belong. They want to contribute, they want to prove they deserve their place among the stars. She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes or optical sensors of as many representatives as she could. I am proposing that Earth be granted full membership in the galactic community, that humans be allowed to serve in all capacities across our civilizations, that we share knowledge freely and build a future together. This is unprecedented, someone called out. No species has been granted full membership so quickly after contact. These are unprecedented circumstances. Eighth countered, humanity has qualities we need, and we have knowledge they need. Together we can all become stronger. The debate continued for hours. Some species supported the proposal enthusiastically, others expressed reservations. But gradually, through Eighth's persuasion and the weight of her authority, consensus formed. The vote was called. Earth would join the galactic community as a full member. That night, Day stood on the same balcony where Eighth often contemplated the stars. She found him there, looking toward a point in the sky where Earth lay too far to see, but always present in his thoughts. You should be celebrating, Eighth said. Joining him, your species has achieved something remarkable today. I know, De replied, and I am grateful, but I also know this is just the beginning. Now comes the hard part, proving we deserve this chance. You have already proven it. I have proven that one human can fight. Now we must prove that humans can build, can cooperate, can contribute something beyond combat skills. Eighth smiled. Wise words. You understand that strength alone does not make a civilization great. We learned that lesson the hard way on Earth. Many times they stood in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Eighth spoke again. I have a confession. When I first selected you, I sensed something unusual. I thought you might be interesting. I never imagined you would change everything. I did not change anything, Day corrected gently. I just showed what humans are, what we can be when necessary, but we are also teachers, artists, scientists, farmers, parents. We are more than warriors. I know that now, and I will make sure the galaxy knows it too. Day received a message on his communication device. It was from Hana. His sister's message was simple. We heard the news. The whole world is celebrating. Mom and Dad are crying happy tears. You did it, brother. You opened the stars for us. He smiled, a genuine expression of joy that Eighth had rarely seen from him. My sister, he explained, she is happy as she should be, as your entire world should be. Ath paused. What will you do now? You have accomplished your mission. My mission is not over, they said. It is only expanded. Now I must help guide humanity's integration into galactic society. I must be a bridge between worlds, and I must make sure that future generations of humans understand the responsibility that comes with the gifts we are receiving. You will need help. Yes, I have requested that others from Earth join me. Scientists, diplomats, teachers. We need to show the full spectrum of what humanity offers. Eighth nodded approvingly. I will ensure they are welcomed, and I will personally oversee the integration process. Your species is too important to leave to bureaucrats alone. More ships began arriving in the following weeks. Humans came to Luminina, primed to study, to teach, to serve, to explore. Among them was Ta's family, reunited at last. The palace halls that had once echoed with skepticism now buzzed with curiosity and cooperation. Day found himself busier than ever, serving as liaison between human newcomers and established galactic species, but he made time each day to stand on the balcony and look toward home. Some habits were hard to break. Vorthon, the Korthian warrior, approached him one evening. The massive alien had recovered fully from his injuries during the assassination attempt. "I owe you an apology," Vorthon said bluntly. "I judged your species wrongly. I saw weakness where I should have seen strength of a different kind." Day extended his hand. "No apology needed. You could not have known, but now we can learn from each other. Perhaps you could teach me about Quarian combat techniques." Vorthon's eyes lit up with surprise and pleasure. "And perhaps you could teach me about human martial arts. It would be my honor." They shook hands, a human gesture that Vorthon had learned meant friendship and respect. Months passed. Earth's integration into galactic society proceeded smoothly, guided by Day's diplomatic skills and Eighth's political influence. Humans spread across the stars not as conquerors but as participants in the great community of species. They brought their adaptability, their persistence, their unique perspectives shaped by millennia of survival, and everywhere they went, they changed things subtly. They asked questions no one had thought to ask. They solved problems in ways no one had considered. They made friends with species that had been enemies for generations, simply by treating everyone with respect and finding common ground. Queen Eighth watched all of this with satisfaction. She had ruled for 3,000 years, but the arrival of humanity had invigorated her empire in ways she had not anticipated. The galaxy was changing, and for once she welcomed that change. On Earth, in a small home on the Korean peninsula, Hana received another message from her brother. "The stars are beautiful, sister, but they are not home. One day I will return. Until then, I carry our family with me in my heart. Tell everyone that humanity has found its place among the stars, and we will make them proud." Hana smiled through tears and looked up at the night sky. Somewhere up there her brother was changing the galaxy, and somehow she knew he would never forget where he came from or the values that made him who he was. The age of humanity among the stars had truly begun, not through conquest or dominance, but through the simple act of showing the galaxy what one human could do when given the chance, and what all humans could do when welcomed as equals. The future was uncertain, as futures always are, but for the first time in millennia, the galaxy felt alive with possibility, and at the center of it all stood a quiet human who had revealed his power not to intimidate but to protect, not to conquer but to serve. Day stood on the balcony one last time that evening. The stars shone bright above him. He thought about the journey that had brought him here. He thought about the responsibility he now carried, and he thought about home. Come back safe. Hana had told him, "Do not forget who you are." He had not forgotten. He never would, and that perhaps was humanity's greatest strength, the ability to remain human no matter how far from home they traveled.